Welcome to the deep dive. We don't just skim the surface here. We really plunge in to find those crucial nuggets of knowledge, the things that truly make you well-informed.
That's the goal.
And today, we're tackling something that, well, almost every organization claims to have, but honestly, few truly master strategy.
Mm-hmm. A big one.
Yeah, we're pulling directly from Richard Rumelt's fantastic book, Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, really trying to understand what separates real, impactful strategy from, just aspiration or wishful thinking.
Absolutely. It's easy to mistake one for the other.
Our mission here is to cut through all that noise and give you some actionable insights about strategy, things you might actually be able to apply.
Exactly.
Because let's be honest, right? So many organizations wave the strategy flag, but what they often have is, well, a bunch of goals maybe.
Or a budget.
Or a budget, yeah, or just a long list of things they hope will happen, what makes a true strategy different, and, why is it so often missing?
That really is the core question, isn't it?
Yeah.
This deep dive, hopefully, will help demystify strategy a bit, move it from this vague concept to something more like a clear, logical framework.
Okay.
It's not just about what you want to achieve. It's very specifically about how you plan to get over the key challenges that are standing in your way.
Right.
It's a roadmap for, effective movement, not just pointing at a destination on the map.
Okay, let's dive into Rumelt's central idea then. He argues that good strategy isn't about doing, 100 things sort of okay.
Yeah.
It's about finding the one or two critical issues, the real pivot points, and then focusing everything, all your resources, your effort, right on those.
That's key.
It's a cohesive, really targeted response to an important challenge. But why do so many organizations struggle with that? Finding those pivot points, they seem obvious later sometimes.
Well, that's where the insight part comes in, you see.
Right.
What's fascinating, and Rumelt points this out, is how often people actually misdiagnose their own problems. They complain about, say, execution problems, but when you dig deeper, they've actually completely confused strategy with just setting goals.
Okay, I see.
A true strategy isn't just wishful thinking. It's a rigorous, focused solution to a problem you've clearly defined. It takes more than dreaming. It demands some hard thinking about the obstacles.
And at the heart of this good strategy, Rumelt introduces this concept he calls the kernel. It's a logical structure, basically. 3 essential elements. Can you walk us through those?
Sure.
What makes these components so foundational, and why do so many places miss them if they seem, well, straightforward?
Right. Well, first is diagnosis. And this isn't just, listing your problems. It's about honestly acknowledging the challenges you face and really defining the situation deeply.
Okay.
It's about cutting through all the complexity to create a simpler story, one that really spotlights the crucial aspects and identifies the core obstacle. Like finding the main lever, you could say.
Finding the lever. I like that. What's next?
Second, you need a guiding policy. So once you know the obstacle, this is your overall approach for dealing with it.
The how.
Exactly. It directs and also constrains action. It provides the why and how of your strategic attack, but without getting bogged down in every single tiny detail. It sets the overall direction for overcoming that key obstacle.
Got it. Diagnosis, guiding policy, and the third.
And finally, there's coherent action. These are the specific, feasible, coordinated things you actually do. Policies, resource commitments, individual actions, all designed specifically to carry out that guiding policy.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Precisely, where it all comes together. You see, without a clear diagnosis, a guiding policy, and coherent actions that line up, you don't actually have a strategy.
So what do you have?
You have maybe a wish list, or a budget,
Yeah.
or, a stretch goal, something aspirational. A real strategy, though, it's like a lever. It magnifies your force. It lets you achieve significant results even if you don't have massive resources. It's about making your push count.
That's a really powerful analogy, the lever. Because good strategy doesn't just use the strengths you already have.
No, it can create strength.
Right. It actually creates new strength just through the coherence of its design. It's kind of amazing how many organizations lack that. They end up pursuing all these unconnected or even conflicting goals. What's the subtle art there, building that new strength?
It often comes from these subtle but actually profound shifts in viewpoint. Rumelt calls them game-changing insights.
Okay.
These aren't just clever ideas off the top of your head. They're an insightful reframing of the whole competitive situation, one that unlocks totally new ways of seeing advantages and weaknesses.
Maybe the best illustration, or one of the most striking, is Lou Gerstner turning IBM around. When he took over back in '93, pretty much everyone thought the only way forward was to break up the company, this huge, giant...
That was a consensus, yeah.
But Gerstner's diagnosis, completely different. He didn't see the size itself as the problem. He saw the lack of internal coordination, the lack of agility across its different businesses.
Interesting shift.
Yeah. So his guiding policy became this massive reorientation, shifting IBM away from just hardware towards high-margin software and consulting services, and crucially, making sure those parts work together. It was a total reframing of IBM's core problem.
A fundamental shift in diagnosis leading to a completely different path.
Exactly. Or think about Walmart. Kmart was the big established leader back then, deeply committed to this decentralized model. Each store pretty much ran itself.
Right, that was their model.
Walmart, though, totally broke the mold. Sam Walton aggressively put these big stores in small towns and just relentlessly chased everyday low prices. What was the key insight he had that Kmart just missed?
Well, Sam Walton saw the hidden power not just in the low prices themselves, but in the system that made them possible.
System.
Yeah, Kmart's decentralization, the thing they treasured, and actually became a huge disadvantage because they couldn't coordinate things like purchasing or logistics or inventory across their whole network the way Walmart learned to.
So coordination was key.
Walton's insight was that the real power came from this shift in perspective on discount retailing, leveraging an integrated, tightly coordinated network of stores. That was the game changer.
Another classic pivot, strategy-wise, is Intel. Exiting the DRAM business in 1985, that was huge.
A massive bet.
Andy Grove, he was grappling with this fierce Japanese competition in memory chips, and he famously asked Gordon Moore, the chairman, if we got kicked out and the board brought in a new CEO, what do you think he would do?
And Moore's answer was immediate.
Right. Moore apparently said he would get us out of memories. And Grove's response was just brilliant. Why shouldn't you and I walk out the door, come back and do it ourselves?
Nah, love that.
And they did. They shed the memory chip business completely, focused entirely on microprocessors. That took incredible strategic discipline, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Making those hard choices not to do something.
So it's really clear, isn't it? Good strategy is at least as much about what an organization decides not to do as what it does do. It's about making those tough, focused choices.
That's absolutely right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, many truly effective strategies are less like one single decision and more like an intricate design. They're constructed piece by piece.
Like an architect designing a building.
Sort of, yeah. Take Hannibal, often called the father of strategy, right? His victory over the Romans at Cannae, way back in 216 BC, he had far fewer resources.
Hugely outnumbered.
Hugely. But his success came from this incredibly clever, tight integration of his forces. He looked at the Roman army not just as a bunch of soldiers, but as an organization with its own history, its doctrines, its habits, which he then exploited with his strategic design.
And speaking of intricate designs, what about IKEA? Their strategy isn't just sell cheap furniture.
Not at all. It's a classic chain link system, as Rumelt calls it.
Explain that.
Well, you have the unique designs, the flat pack furniture, which cuts shipping costs dramatically, the catalogs reducing the need for salespeople on the floor, the self-service model where you, the customer, actually pull the stock from the warehouse.
Right, you do half the work.
Exactly. All these pieces work together seamlessly. They create this system that's incredibly difficult for anyone else to replicate.
Because you can't just copy one part.
Precisely. The excellence you get from a really well-managed chain link system like IKEA's, it's notoriously hard to copy because you have to copy the entire integrated system. You can't cherry pick.
That makes sense.
And you see this in market disruption too. Think about Canon working around Xerox's patents back in the day. They didn't just make a slightly better Xerox machine. They created a radically new business model. Smaller, cheaper copiers sold differently.
So they sidestepped the giant.
Yeah. Incumbents often get comfortable. There's this laxity, this inertia, and that gives these agile upstarts their openings.
So that brings it all together. Good strategy is design. And design is about fitting all these different pieces together so they work as a coherent whole. Yet, so often what the CEO says the strategy is, it isn't really the truth on the ground, is it? Many big, complex companies, they end up not really focusing their resources. They're kind of pursuing multiple, often unfocused goals.
Which leads us to another really crucial point. A new strategy is fundamentally a hypothesis.
A hypothesis, like in science.
Exactly. It's implementation. That's the experiment. The best leaders, they aren't rigid. They understand this. They're prepared to adjust their strategies based on the actual results they see in the real world.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The Starbucks story really brings this concept to life, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Classic example.
So 1983, Howard Schultz goes to Italy. He's captivated by the whole espresso experience, the culture around it.
Right, the romance of it.
And he forms this strategic hypothesis, basically, that this authentic Italian espresso experience could be recreated in America and people would love it.
His initial idea, though, was to replicate it directly, like an Italian bar transplanted. No chairs, small cups, opera music playing.
No chairs.
Initially, yeah. But as Schultz started actually operating the first few stores, he began accumulating what Rumelt calls privileged information, real feedback about American tastes.
What people actually wanted.
What they actually wanted. And he gradually localized that Italian concept, adapted it to fit American preferences through essentially scientific induction.
Scientific induction.
Yeah, basically forming hypotheses. Maybe Americans want comfortable chairs.
Yeah.
Rigorously testing them with real customers, getting feedback, and then modifying the strategy based on what you learn, just like a scientist running experiments in a lab.
Fascinating.
And it's interesting, historically, coffee houses in England, there were these hubs for debate, information, like early libraries. In Southern Europe, coffee was often more of an alcohol substitute. America first adopted coffee mainly as a cheap alternative to tea. Schultz was basically reinventing coffee's place in American culture.
And just think about that journey. How did coffee go from, 75 cents in a styrofoam cup to the massive American icon it is today?
Through that process.
It was precisely that iterative process, right? Constant testing, learning, adapting. And the big American roasters back then, Kraft, Sara Lee, P&G, they were so fixated on the mass market, the 75-cent cup.
They struggled to react.
Yeah, they really struggled to react to this fundamental cultural shift that Schultz was driving. They weren't experimenting and learning in the same way at all.
They missed the boat on that cultural change.
So if good strategy is clearly so powerful, why does bad strategy seem to flourish? You see it everywhere, often in plain sight. Rumelt argues it just sort of floats above analysis, logic, and choice.
Yeah, he calls it the active avoidance of the hard work.
The avoidance of hard work. That sounds about right.
And all too often, bad strategy just confuses desire what you want to happen with an actual plan for overcoming the obstacles in your way.
Right.
Tends to be, long on goals and short on policy or action. Just stating where you want to end up is no substitute for a proper roadmap to get there.
Catchy slogans don't cut it.
Exactly. Slogans are great for marketing, maybe rallying the troops, but they're definitely not a substitute for a real strategy.
And one of the biggest obstacles, maybe the most insidious one, Rumelt says it's our own myopia, our own blind spots.
Common to pretty much all strategic situations.
It's just unnatural, isn't it? Maybe even painful sometimes to really question our own deeply held ideas. We often spend more energy justifying them than genuinely questioning them.
We do. It's like, frantically searching for your glasses when they're on top of your head the whole time.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most obvious obstacles are the ones we just don't see.
That's a great analogy.
And it taps into some deep human tendencies, unfortunately. We tend to see patterns where there's only randomness. We see causes where there are just associations. And we're really good at ignoring information that conflicts with what we already believe.
Confirmation bias.
Exactly. Good strategy, by contrast, demands an independent, really careful assessment of the actual situation. Bad strategy. It often just follows the crowd, substitutes popular slogans or trends for genuine insight.
And we can see this play out so dramatically throughout history, can't we? Think about something like the law of attraction or the New Thought movement. It gained huge traction, especially peaking in the early 20th century.
Right. Rooted in ideas from people like Emerson, transcendentalism.
Yeah, suggesting that just thinking the right thoughts could attract desired outcomes, even cure disease. Figures like Prentice Mulford, Thoughts Are Things. Wallace Wattles' The Science of Getting Rich. More recently, Rhonda Byrne's The Secret.
Hugely popular.
These movements promised prosperity, success, health, just through mindset alone.
Well, looking at it through the lens of strategy, these movements, despite, their charismatic appeal and they can overcome inertia, they highlight a fundamental flaw.
Which is?
They represent statements of desire rather than concrete plans for overcoming obstacles. Strategy, at its core, is the craft of figuring out which goals are both worth pursuing and, crucially, capable of being accomplished.
Meaning you have a plausible path to get there.
You have a plausible path, not just a wish.
Yeah.
It's grounded in reality.
And we've certainly seen the real-world consequences when strategy gets replaced by wishful thinking or just a lack of deep, honest analysis.
Yeah.
Especially in finance.
Oh, definitely.
Think about all those historical financial panics, 1819, 1837, 1873, 1893. You look back and the root causes are often eerily similar.
Easy credit.
Easy credit, rampant over-leveraging, collapses in land values or bonds. Then you fast forward to the 2008 crisis. Same patterns, different details maybe. Unpriceable derivative securities, huge bonuses for taking hidden risks, assets financed by overnight borrowing.
Indeed. Those events starkly demonstrate the severe consequences when strategy is shoved aside for wishful thinking or just insufficient analysis. And it's interesting, even well-intentioned programs like Herbert Hoover's Own Your Own Home, pushed back in 1922, or later efforts by FDR, Truman, Clinton, Bush to expand homeownership through easier credit. Sometimes when they weren't underpinned by really sound, sober strategic assessment of the risks, they inadvertently contributed to environments of over-leveraging.
So good intentions aren't enough.
Good intentions aren't enough. It really drives home that old saying, doesn't it? Pride goes before destruction. A lack of humility about the challenges.
It's also really important to remember, isn't it, that healthy growth, it isn't engineered like flicking a switch on a machine.
No, it's more organic.
It's the outcome, usually, of growing demand for some special capability your organization has, or maybe expanding or extending those capabilities. It's the reward you get for genuine innovation or cleverness or efficiency or creativity.
Absolutely. And to succeed, especially in a world that's constantly changing, a leader doesn't actually need to get the strategy perfectly 100% right from day one.
Really?
The organization's strategy just has to be more right than those of its rivals, enough to gain an edge. And in a world of constant flux, just doing more of the same is almost never the right answer for long.
You have to adapt.
You have to adapt. A good strategy must have an entrepreneurial component. It has to push you to the edge of what's known, maybe even a little beyond, to find those crucial insights.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening out there as you navigate your own challenges, your own opportunities?
Yeah, the takeaway.
I think the core message is pretty clear. Strategy isn't some complex, dusty document that sits on a shelf. And it's definitely not just wishful thinking.
No.
It's a focused, coherent response to a challenge you've clearly defined. It absolutely requires that honest diagnosis, a clear guiding policy, and then coherent action that really aligns your resources and effort.
Yeah, making choices.
And making choices. It forces you to make difficult choices, to say no probably just as much as you say yes.
And maybe if a final thought to mull over. Good strategy is definitely built on foundational knowledge, understanding what works, what doesn't, and why. That's crucial.
Okay.
But to be truly strategic, you also have to be willing to put aside the comfort, the security of just pure deduction, that logical step-by-step reasoning. You have to be willing to launch into the murkier waters, the less certain areas of induction, analogy, judgment, and genuine insight.
That's where the breakthroughs happen.
That's often where the real game-changing insights lie.
So as you look at your own situations, your own work, your own organization, we encourage you to consider what anomalies, what little things that don't quite fit might you be overlooking in your own context. As Sherlock Holmes famously said to Watson, "You see but do not observe."
A great line.
Are you truly observing the landscape around you for those hidden pivot points, those potential insights? Something to think about.